You are Locked On Warriors Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Bay Area, on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yo, what's up everyone, and welcome back to the Locked On Warriors Postcast. I am your host, Eric Triple E Engel. You may know me as the former producer for the Murph and Mac morning show at KMBR. And tonight couldn't get it done. Too much Nikola Jokic. Klay Thompson came out hot as fish grease in this one, dropping 23 points in the first half off the bench. But he and the Warriors stalled big time in the second half, falling to the Denver Nuggets 119-103. Klay did not score in the second half, and there was absolutely no answer inside for Nikola Jokic, who set another NBA record tonight. Steph did not have a superhuman level game, and it seems like the Warriors need that to beat the best of the West and make a championship run. Is that too much to ask of him at this point in his career? We will break it all down, but first, I want to thank all of you for watching us on the Locked On Sports Bay Area YouTube channel. Please, please, please hit that subscribe button. And also, thank you for listening on the Locked On Warriors podcast feed. However you're getting the show, thank you so much for checking in. Make sure to check out the Locked On Warriors Daily Show for more in-depth coverage. Cyrus does a really good job. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And this game, I thought we were going to see I thought I was going to be sitting here talking about a 50-point outing from Klay the way that he started this game, man. I thought third quarter Klay was going to be renamed to first quarter Klay. He scored more points in the first quarter than any other Warrior has scored in the first quarter in 25 seasons, which that was really surprising to me because he did have 16 points in the first quarter. And that's a lot. That's a really nice quarter. But this is Steph Curry and Klay Thompson we're talking about, guys who have set all sorts of scoring records, and 16 just seemed a little low to me. I don't know. Anyways, the Warriors kept it close in the beginning. Despite Steph having a just terrible first half, I believe he only had one three-pointer, 1 for 7, I think, from beyond the arc in the first half, and just 3 points. Steph was not able to do a whole lot offensively, and it was Klay off the bench who really kept the Warriors in this one. And we've kind of seen that theme throughout this Warriors win streak. When Steph has an off night, or even when Steph's just on the bench in the non-Steph minutes, you see Klay really carrying this team, the scoring load of this team. And he's had some off nights scoring-wise. We've discussed it. But when he has, those have been on nights, luckily, when Steph is red hot. So for the most part, it was fine. But in today's game, you saw what happens when Steph, he turned it on a little bit in the second half, but it just wasn't enough. It was too little, too late. He clearly wasn't on top of his I'm not trying to say Steph had a bad game. He didn't. He still ended up with 20 plus points, but this isn't like a superhuman level Steph Curry game. You know what I mean? Like he's not making me sit here scream, Steph Curry, you are ridiculous. Mark Jackson isn't watching going, mama, there goes that man. This wasn't one of those nights from Steph. And it seems like the Warriors need that from him in order to make a deep playoff push and to beat these teams at the upper echelon of the NBA. More on that later. But we got to talk about Nikola Jokic and what he did to the Warriors in the paint, in transition, on defense in this game. He was all over the place. This man was completely unstoppable, set an NBA record. No player has ever had 3 consecutive games with 14 or more assists and 14 or more rebounds. And he is just the same way that we talk about Steph on this show. I assume the Locked On Nuggets podcast is talking about Nikola Jokic the same way on their show. They at least they should be. This guy is a generational talent, changes the game in ways that we have not seen a big man change the game before. And you see the impact that he has that permeates throughout the rest of the NBA. People looking for the next big man who can do it all, who can shoot, dribble, run in transition, shoot threes, pass dimes, he just do everything. And you see some copycats of that around the league. Wemby, big, he said he was going to play like point center at the beginning of this year. Wembanyama in San Antonio, Chet Holmgren in OKC. There's a lot of these young big guys that the NBA is trying to find that replicate things that Jokic could do. And it's very, 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 very similar. We know the NBA is a copycat league. This is very similar to what we saw when Steph started to break the NBA the way he did with his shooting. And a lot of teams went out and tried to find the next Steph Curry. A lot of teams tried to just shoot 100 threes a game. And some of them find some success. The Rockets became a competitive team, kind of playing that brand of basketball back in those days. And it'll be interesting to see how this new crop of young big men that are trying to copy Nikola Jokic, no easy task, but people are going to try and do it nonetheless. We're going to see how this young crop of budding superstars pans out. And I'm kind of excited to see more big guys back in the NBA. I feel like we've kind of gone away from that a little bit. So just one interesting note, I thought. One question that came up to me during this game was wondering, at the end of their careers, who will have a bigger impact on changing the NBA, Steph Curry or Nikola Jokic? Just something interesting to ponder, I thought, because we all hold Steph up as this guy who just completely broke and dismantled the NBA as we know it. And I think we're seeing Jokic do that now. I mean, when he's I don't know how you don't think that when he's plus 20 with 32 points, 16 boards, and 16 assists. By the way, 4 steals. Like this was domination on 13 of 24 shooting. Domination by Nikola Jokic. And it's not like he's going to the line all the time. 4-4 from the line and shot 4 free throws. So he's not this big guy who's banging down low. There was one sequence where Jokic had a steal. He intercepted a cross-court Draymond Green pass, took the ball up the court, and made like a little hezzy move where when he gathered the ball like he was going to shoot a runner, he faked the pass, faked the runner. Draymond Green got lost in no man's land, who Draymond Green is one of the best defenders, one of the most heady players in the NBA, and he had no idea what to do. And Jokic had him totally on a string, and Jokic had an easy dime for an easy dunk to a wide open nugget in transition. And it's that kind of stuff that is just there's no defense for that. Nikola Jokic single-handedly can break teams the way that Stephen Curry single-handedly breaks teams as well. They go about it in different ways, but the impact that they have on the game is very, very, very similar. It's just crushing, absolutely crushing for their opponents. And the Warriors really had no answer defensively for Nikola Jokic. I mean, Draymond Green just got worked tonight, and you saw him getting frustrated, and you saw a little bit of that old Draymond coming out at the end of the game, which you just hate to see. There was a missed offensive foul. Draymond was upset about it. He was pretty vocal with the officials from the jump in tonight's game. You saw him jawing with them, which, you're going to expect from Draymond on any given night. But tonight just seemed like we've been talking a lot about how he's been really locked in mentally and just focused and done exactly what he needs to do, just right in that line of intensity between insanity and just intensity. And he's just right on that line. And tonight, I think he leaned a little further onto the insanity side than the intensity side. And he seemed like he let the rage bubble up a little bit too much there at the end of the game. Maybe he felt like it was already out of reach and he just wanted to be heard and make himself understood to the officials, which I don't know if that's the best strategy to win games. But he just wrapped up, bear hugged Nikola Jokic in the post, middle of the fourth quarter, and the Warriors still had a shot. They were still within striking distance at this time, down by about 10. And though it would have been a long shot for them to come back, Draymond Green just basically intentionally fouls Nikola Jokic while he's going up for an easy layup that looked like it was a gimme. And he goes to the line, hits them both. And this is one of the main things that Steve Kerr and we have talked about on this postcast, is that the Warriors need to defend without fouling. This is the huge problem for this team, defending without fouling and turnovers, the two things we talk about night in and night out. And tonight, they did not do either of those things very well. 17 turnovers, 17. You're not going to beat the Denver Nuggets that way. We talked about this last Friday after the Warriors beat the Hornets in a very boring, ugly game. We said they cannot turn the ball over damn near 20 times a game and expect to beat teams at the top of the conference. You might beat a team like the Hornets, a bottom feeder in the Eastern Conference, sure, when you turn the ball 20 times. You got Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and all these other guys that can hit a bunch of shots, and the Hornets don't have LaMelo Ball. They're a less than 21 team for a reason. But when you're playing the defending NBA champions, the league front runner for MVP. You cannot have games like this and expect to win. And this is what I think Curry is talking about when he says stuff like, we are extremely average. We have heard Steph say this before, and we saw it again tonight. I mean, there was a certain point in this game during the third quarter where the entire starting lineup individually for the Warriors, each individual player was a minus in the plus minus category. And every single player on the bench was a positive. So that was kind of interesting, but just was an indicative of how much the Warriors starters just got whooped by the Denver starters tonight. And when Steph isn't having that Human Torch, like extraterrestrial type game where he just looks like a monster from Space Jam out here, just draining 30, 40 footer threes, when he's not doing stuff like that, when he's not putting up 30 plus a game, where's it going to come from? Tonight, we thought it was Klay Thompson. And then he just disappeared in the second half and nobody really stepped up. There was only two other Warriors in double figures tonight besides Curry and Klay. That was Wiggins with 14 and Kuminga with 19. And let me tell you, Wiggins plus minus 14. John Kuminga's plus minus 20. It's not like these points were coming in winning minutes. The Warriors closed really, really, really poorly in this game. Another key that we've talked about, I would say these are the three biggest keys we've talked about, is winning basketball and closing minutes, defending without fouling, don't turn the ball over. We harp on these three things all the time. And when the Warriors don't do them, they lose, just like we saw tonight. They didn't do any of these three, any at all. They're going to need to clean these things up going down the stretch. The sky is not falling. It is not the end of the world to lose to a team like the Nuggets. We've called a lot of, I've been going out on a limb and calling a lot of these games must-win games down the stretch. This is not a must-win game in my mind. You can afford to lose games to teams like this and still end up with a solid playoff seeding at the end of the day. You can't lose games to teams that you think you can pass in the seedings. They're not catching the Nuggets. They're not getting to fourth or third in the standing. That's that. If you're thinking that, get that out of your mind right now. That's not going to happen. What I do think they might be able to do, outside shot, they could get the 6th seed, but it's more realistic that they finish somewhere 7 through 10. And it's really important for them to have home court advantage in that play-in game. Chase Center provides an incredible lift for this team. And even though they were there tonight, last game of the homestand before going on that East Coast road trip, which, by the way, we should see Chris Paul return during. It's going to be a huge lift for this team. It's going to be interesting to see what Steve Kerr does with these lineups once Chris Paul is back. Who gets the start now that Klay's on the bench? Is it Podziemski or is it Chris Paul or who is it? So I think this will kind of be a matchup-based thing. We'll see what it looks like going forward. I think Chris Paul is probably going to be on the bench a little more than Brandon Podziemski. I think Pods has kind of earned his place in the starting lineup. So we'll see. By the way, happy birthday, AirPods. I feel like we've had all these birthdays later in the last 3 shows. We've had 3 birthdays. Brandon Podziemski turns 21 today. 21. That's pretty good. It's pretty good player for the future Warriors got there. He can now go celebrate with a nice cold fresh one with the boys after this game, even though they lost. I'm sure the guys will all be going out on the town on what was, by the way, an absolutely beautiful, top 10 weekends of my life, weather-wise in San Francisco these last 2 days. Just unreal, picturesque, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful days here in the city by the bay. But that didn't rub off on the Warriors tonight. Maybe they were just so busy enjoying the weather. They just, were a little slower in this one because they're just happy, just happy floating around in the bay. Maybe Klay will get back out on the boat while this weather's still here. We got some more stuff to get into on the other side. We need to discuss if there's too much pressure on Stephen Curry at this point in his career to lead this team to a championship. More on that in just a minute. We will be right back. I am Eric Tripoli Engel, and you are watching or listening to the Locked On Warriors postcast. No matter what kind of work you do, how you communicate is key. I personally respond to so many emails every day that I inevitably miss some typos. Shocker. Surprise to absolutely nobody. But nobody wants to come across as careless or even worse, unintelligent in an email. And that's where Grammarly comes into play. Even their tone suggestions help you navigate the most difficult work conversations. Grammarly works across 500,000 apps and websites. That's a lot of apps and websites. It's no surprise that 93% of professionals using Grammarly Premium report that it helps them get more work done. Grammarly is the gold standard of responsible AI with 14 years of experience and just about every IT certification under the sun. Make a bigger impact at work with Grammarly. Sign up and download for free at grammarly.com/podcast. That's GRAMMARLY.com/podcast. Easier said, done. Welcome back to the Locked On Warriors postcast. I am your host, Eric Triple E Engel, and we are discussing why, well, not why, but if the Warriors are placing too much responsibility, pressure, whatever you want to call it, on Stephen Curry to carry them in the way he does at this point in his career. And we talked a little bit about something similar on the last postcast. We discussed if Steph was playing the best basketball of his career, and we made the case that he very well could be right now with what he's got around him, with the age that he's at, with the way that he's letting the game come to him and how different teams are playing him at this point in his career. But is it too much to ask? I think it is. Point blank, I think it is. I do not think the Warriors are going to be able to win a championship if they need 35-ish from Steph every night and need him to hit behind the back, assists on transition dunks and things like that. If he's not making highlight reel, plays that we will see 30 years from now and go, wow, I remember that. If he's not doing that in a game, the Warriors don't really have a shot to beat these top teams. And we've seen it time and time and time again this season where the Warriors play these close games, and it just is so much pressure in these crunch time situations, and you know where the ball is going every single time. There's no switch up in what the Warriors' plan of attack is. And teams just come at Steph, and they don't let him score. He continues to have the worst whistle of any star player ever. I mean, I know I've not been around since the inception of basketball. I was not alive in the early 1900s, but I'm willing to go out on a limb here and say Steph Curry gets less calls than any star player that has played this game professionally has ever had. And it is absurd. It's ridiculous. And I'm tired of watching it every single night, as I'm sure every single Warriors fan is tired of watching. It's trash. Steph needs to get these calls. Tony Brothers, pay attention, please. Scott Foster, you too. But I mean, you can't sit here and beg for fouls. I get that. And Steph's never going to do that. But I mean, it just seems like every night there's an egregious missed call against Steph where it's just, I just don't know how the NBA, who is really good at protecting their star players and all the, the LeBrons of the world, the Giannis's of the world get to the line 20 plus times a game. I know Steph's not driving the lane as much as those guys, but he's driving the lane a lot these days. He's not just chucking threes as he did early in his career. Those ankles are good. He's driving to the hole and he's getting fouled and he's not getting these calls. It's garbage. The NBA needs to do better. Aside from that, it's too much. The Warriors do not have a Kevin Durant on this roster. They just don't. They don't even have a all-star level Klay Thompson on this roster. There's a reason Klay's coming off the bench now, and 23 off the bench is nice, especially when it's all in one half. But disappearing in crunch time in the second half, when it's all on the line, that's not going to get it done. Andrew Wiggins did not step up. John Kuminga did not step up. None of these guys really took it upon themselves to be that second scorer tonight when Steph wasn't getting it done. And when Klay started to cool off in the second half, there was just nobody left to step up. And I guess this is the difference. We say we talk about all the similarities between the strength and numbers teams and this team. This is the difference, is with those strength and numbers teams, you could expect, guarantee almost, that there was going to be somebody else. If it wasn't Steph, then it was Kevin Durant. If it wasn't Kevin Durant, it was Klay Thompson. If it wasn't Klay Thompson, maybe Draymond Green has a big scoring night. This was back when he still had those 20-plus point games. There was a different option. Andre Iguodala even. There was always somebody else on these teams to step up and make an impact. And right now, the Warriors just don't seem to have that guaranteed night in and night out. Most nights, more than some, I would say most nights, you do have somebody who steps up. But against really, really good teams, they will adjust. They will know how to play to your tendencies and how to stop these things from happening. And you can only take away so many players in a game. I understand that. And it looked like the Nuggets tonight just said, we're going to take away Steph. Once Klay started going off, they said, we're going to make sure he doesn't beat us too. And no one else took it upon themselves to say, I am getting us back in this game. You didn't see Kuminga going to the hole with the authority that he normally does. He did get to the line a lot. I did really like seeing John Kuminga really making an emphasis to get to the line. 9 of 13 on his free throws. He needs to get better at that. He needs to get up near the 70% mark consistently. That would be a big help. 70-75% from the free throw line would be awesome for John Kuminga. If we could get him there, that would be great. The free throw disparity we have talked about a lot on this podcast. Warriors actually shot more free throws than the Nuggets tonight, which is interesting. It didn't really matter though. With the amount of turnovers that they had, it's just too much to overcome. And these turnovers are created by Steph pressing. A good example of that is in the second quarter, right before halftime, when the Warriors just got worked by the Nuggets. I believe ended that quarter on a 14-0 run. And Steph was dribbling down for what should have been the final shot of that quarter, was looking to get a three, got doubled by Jokic and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. And he just got his pocket picked. And that's not good basketball. Steph usually in those plays, in those situations, he knows where to pass. If he's going to dribble out of it, he's already kind of got an exit route. You can see like planned out in his brain. It's not like he almost, I'm not going to say he looked deer in the headlights-ish, but he looked like he was kind of scrambling out there, like improvising on the fly to figure out what he needed to do, where he needed to go with the ball. And when he's pressing like that, it's not the best situation for the Warriors. The Warriors have a very flowy offense that feeds off of guys moving without the ball, back screens, all those sorts of things. And none of that, absolutely none of that was happening on a possession like that. Everyone just stood there and looked at Steph and said, do something. And that's not winning basketball. That is not how you will beat a team like the Nuggets, a defending NBA champion. That is not how you will bring a championship to Chase Center in 2024. The Warriors need a lot of things for them to go right for them to win a championship. If you listen to the Draymond Green podcast, you heard him say that exact same thing on his show. Maybe it was yesterday or the day before. Can't remember which one. But he said the Warriors, he does definitely think that, I mean, the same thing we've said. As long as you got Steph Curry on that team in this core of championship winners, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, you know that the Warriors know how to win. They have the star player that can carry them there. All that remains is if the rest of the supporting cast can lift them to the upper echelon of the NBA. I'm not so sure if they can do it this year. They have the potential, but a lot of things need to go right. We got more to get into on the other side. You are listening to the Locked On Warriors postcast. I am your host, Eric Triple E Engel, and we will be right back. With Stitch Fix, you get a stylist who understands your style, size, and budget. They do all the shopping for you. It's the easiest way to update your wardrobe this season. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription required. They send 5 just for me pieces plus outfit recommendations and pro styling advice. You know I need that. I keep what works and send back the rest. My stylist always sends just the right pieces, and the fit is on point. It's like they have style ESP. I just don't know how they do it, but they get me. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/lockedon. That's stitchfix.com/lockedon. stitchfix.com/lockedon. Welcome back to the Locked On Warriors postcast. I am your host, Eric Triple E Engel, and we are recapping the Warriors' 119-103 loss to the Denver Nuggets, their final game of their 3-game homestand out of the All-Star break at Chase Center before they go on a 4-game roadie on the East Coast which features playing the Boston Celtics, class of the NBA right now, and the New York Knicks, who are also a championship Eastern Conference title contender. This is going to be a tough road trip for them. But first, they'll be traveling to Washington in their next game to face an old foe, Jordan Poole, squaring off against Draymond Green and company. Maybe we should use some different terminology there, not squaring off, but facing Draymond Green and company, hopefully not squaring off. And tonight, it was too much Nikola Jokic. We talked about it a little bit earlier on the podcast. Jokic setting an NBA record with 14 points, 14 assists in 3 consecutive games. This guy is changing the NBA, the way that the game is played, the way that the position of center is played. And it's incredible. It's incredible what he's doing. I mean, you kind of heard Steve Kerr basically just say, yeah, we're going to try and stop Jokic, but our best bet is if Curry gets going. If you were watching the ESPN broadcast, you heard him say that in the in-game interview, and Steph just never got going. It looked like Klay was going to kind of take it upon himself in the beginning of this game. You could tell he was in the building and feeling himself like Mac Dre when he was looking at the crowd and flexing and screaming and yelling every time he's going down the court after scoring and just feeding off that Chase Center energy. And that's the kind of Klay that you need in order for the Warriors to be successful. And we didn't see him do that in the second half. And we did see some contributions. He was still active on the floor. He's still playing defense, rebounding, closing out on jumpers. But the Warriors needed him to score, and he just couldn't get it done. This game did have a lot of intensity, though. It did feel like a playoff game, which is a good sign to see after that Hornets game just felt like a slog. Granted, that was the second game of a back-to-back after a long break. Guys were probably tired, sore legs, all that. And it was good to see them have intensity in this game. 119-103 sounds like a very large lopsided loss, and it really wasn't. The Warriors kept this one pretty close throughout. And it was really the end of the third quarter and the beginning of the fourth quarter that just separated the Nuggets from the Warriors. And I mean, fast break points also in this one were a big deal. The Nuggets had like 20 more fast break points than the Warriors. And that's very unusual for a team that has, that's predicated on running their offense through the center to be able to beat a team like the Warriors who just wants to shoot a million threes in fast break points, because the Warriors are full of small guys who are fast and can run. And then you got Nikola Jokic out here whose 40 time is like similar to mine probably. And he's getting it done. It's crazy. I mean, by the end of this game, Jokic was just scratched up and clawed. It looked like he had just gotten like he wrestled a bear or something. Like, he basically did. Draymond playing basketball against Draymond Green in the post with him defending you. That's probably similar to battling a bear. But he looked like it. He looked like he just got mugged. He was all scratched up. He was kind of bloody. He was bruised and battered. I mean, he's a tough dude, man. He's a tough dude. And he's really changing the way that this game is played. Draymond Green got a little bit too emotional tonight at the end when the game was starting to slip away. Dumb foul, just being mad about not getting a call, and then just bear hugging a guy who is a great free throw shooter is not what you want to do. You saw Jokic doing it all in this one. He threw a alley-oop to the Bay Area's own Archbishop Midi guy, Aaron Gordon, who came back to the Bay and had himself a little bit of a night tonight. He was all over the place on the boards. He had finished with 6 rebounds, threw down some lobs, 17 points. And the Warriors don't really have a response for a tandem like this, or even just Jokic on his own, but you worry about how they're going to be able to match up against teams that do similar things. And when you look at the top of the Western Conference, it's a lot of teams that do the same things. It's the Minnesota Timberwolves with Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns in the post. Those are going to be big guys that are hard to stop for them too. Chet Holmgren on OKC, amongst the other plethora of weapons that they have with their 900 first round draft picks, they're hard to stop in the post, and the Warriors don't really have a response to it. And it's going to be very, very difficult for them to figure out an answer. I don't know what it is. I truly don't know what they can do differently in the post to stop teams like this. They're not going to go get Clifford Ray. Shout out Clifford Ray, 1974-75 champion with the Warriors. He was on the NBC Bay Area broadcast tonight. Had the privilege of meeting Clifford one time. Just a great, nice, awesome man. Huge hands. Made my hands feel like a little baby when I shook them. But really nice dude. Got the deepest pipes in the world. But they need a guy like that. A big body center who's not afraid to get physical, foul some people, block some shots. And they just don't have a guy like that. They got Kevon Looney. Maybe TJD turns into that guy. I don't think he's going to be able to be that reliable in situations like that in the playoffs. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But wasn't enough for the Warriors tonight. They could not overcome Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. By the way, Jamal Murray, they said on the ESPN broadcast tonight that he sometimes trains with UFC champion Alexander Volkanovski. I mean, do the Nuggets really need to have any more tough guys? Like the Nuggets are like the least like tough guy type team. Like they don't have all this beef with other teams. There's no Grant Williams is running around. But there's a lot of dudes on that team I wouldn't want to mess with, man. And Jamal Murray now is damn near at the top of that list. No, and if he's trading with Volk, I don't know, man. That's a little scary to me. I mean, that dude's got some dog in him coming back from that knee injury the way he did, and now hearing this and just watching the way he plays, the mid-range mastery he has. Just I guess just shout out Jamal Murray. That was a great effort from him tonight, and that's a kind of a cool story. I mean, I know he's not a Warrior, but kind of a cool story that he trains with UFC champion Alexander Volkanovski. That's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. That's about all the time we have for today. We will look forward to Chris Paul, CP3, coming back to the Warriors during this 4-game road trip that starts 2 days from now, February 27th, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see how this lineup shakes out. And we'll see if the Warriors can start defending without fouling. Next game, Tuesday, Wizards, 4 p.m. tip. See you soon, Jordan Poole, and see you all soon on the Locked On Warriors postcast. I'm your host, Eric Wow, I cannot even say my own name today. Eric Triple E Engel. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time. Peace.